What's up, guys, and welcome to our 7th Clone Wars Season 7 episode full breakdown thingy.
Yeah.
This one's for Dangerous Debt, the second to last episode of the Ahsoka's Walkabout arc. What'd you think of this one?
I gotta be honest, I'm getting frustrated with this arc.
You said near the end, you were just like, I'm over the Pikes.
I'm over the Pikes. They just went in a giant circle in this episode. It had some good scenes, some really good fighting scenes, and Ahsoka's still just like using the Force and no one notices, and we're just like, oh.
I'm very ready for that to come to light, for her to be like, hi, I can use the Force. And this felt like it was going to happen this episode because she was doing it so much.
Right, and then the sisters had the story about the Jedi and why they don't like them. And I was like, oh, well, that's awkward.
Yeah, I did like that story.
Yeah.
And I thought it was funny that we'll get to Luminara, but the idea that basically the Jedi were forced into like a trolley situation, like where we either let it crash onto that landing platform with a bunch of people or we shove it into a wall where it's going to kill less people. And that's basically what Luminara says to Trace and Rafa, just like, we had to make a decision, but don't worry, the Force is with you. Like, that means nothing to most people in the galaxy. Like,
right. It's like, especially to children.
Yeah.
And we don't know how old they were when this happened, but
a couple years ago, they said it couldn't have been more than 3 years. So they were probably like 14, 15. But the second they described a Jedi with green skin and we were like, oh no, it's Luminara Unduli. Like, we both knew that meant that this was not going to go well.
Well, mostly because she just has a different attitude than the other Jedi.
Well, I think she has a very Jedi attitude. Not the ideal Jedi, but for the Jedi of that era. She's definitely one of the ones that's like more on the come on, really side of things.
Yeah. What's the episode where she was like, well, if you lose your Padawan, that's what was meant to be.
Right. Like Barriss and Ahsoka on Geonosis are stuck and dying, and Anakin's like, we have to save them. And she's like, well, this might be the will of the Force. And it's like, oh, you're not even going to try? Anakin has to like convince her. And yeah, she's very cold. And has like she probably went with the attachment thing, like no attachments, and she just took it too far. Where it's like she basically showed up to Trace and Rafa and was like, well, you shouldn't have been attached to your parents, little girls. And like, come on, Luminara. So I thought that they actually did a really good job telling that story, making the Jedi look like, I understand why Trace and Rafa would feel the way they do.
Yeah.
And of course that then raises the personal stakes for Ahsoka. She's like, oh, do I out myself to my new friends?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to like me anymore?
Yeah. Yeah, we also got a lot of torture and just overall violence in this episode, which, I don't know, that one Pike that like got his head crushed.
Oh yeah.
I was like, ooh.
That was surprising to me. Like, the second I saw him half on the lift going up, I was like, oh no. Like, that's Clone Wars does a lot of that, like, off-screen implied violence that is still makes you cringe.
Yeah.
Because what happened to that dude.
Yeah. Well, and like the Pikes seem so determined to get this information about their spice out of these girls, and it's like, when have we ever seen the Pikes otherwise, like, doing stuff like this?
I mean, they're
like, no one gets past the Pikes.
They're fairly new to the Clone Wars. If we were to just look at the series, they're introduced in season 5, I think, and then they're in season 6 a little bit. But this is the most they've ever been featured, I would say. But yeah, I guess it's just that they've always been in charge of the spice trade, and they have their reputation at stake. That's what Ahsoka says.
Yeah. I figured once they got out, like, the Pikes would be like, it's more trouble than it's worth to keep looking for them. But that's not the case.
Yeah, I was kind of with you, frustrated that they did go in a big circle. They start in the cell. they end in the cell after all that work. It felt very Canto Bight to me, which I mean, that was kind of the point of last week's episode, the whole mistakes, failure, teaching moments and stuff. And I do like the theme of this week's episode. Who you were doesn't have to define who you are. That's super Star Wars. Like, that's one of the big themes of the original and sequel trilogies. I think that's what Darth Vader and Kylo Ren, like, their story means. It's never too late to go back to the light side, to be better than you were yesterday. And that's really, like, this episode was about Rafa. Because she starts the episode taking no responsibility for where they are. She's like, I had to take that job to survive. There was no other way. And then by the end, she realizes that just because she's been a criminal in the past doesn't mean she has to take criminal jobs in the future. And she apologizes. So, like, she doesn't start in the same place, or start and end at the same place, at least.
Yeah. And it takes torturing of herself and her sister to make her realize all of this.
And Ahsoka, like, even after all the torture, Ahsoka's like, see? Like, she has to keep kind of nagging Rafa until she realizes the error of her ways.
Yeah.
So hopefully that comes back in the final episode of this arc, where Rafa is a better person and it means something for the story.
Another moment that kind of bugged me was when they had to jump across that bridge that was retracting, and like the two sisters get across and they're like, oh, Ahsoka's there's no way she's gonna make it. And Ahsoka, like, runs and jumps, like, force jump, whatever. And she jumps behind them, and they like look down and they're like, oh no, we lost her, let's get out of here.
They just met her.
I know.
Trace seemed worried. Rafa, the one who doesn't really like Ahsoka, was less so.
But then she turns around very quickly before the end of the episode and is, like, cool with her.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the point of this episode, was for us to get Rafa back on the better side of things.
Yeah.
I also, just with that force jump, it's like, I know you guys are in a rush and there's a lot going on and you're hurrying, but it's like, I feel like you're trying to not see that Ahsoka is using the Force all the time.
Yeah. She says, like, I'm more athletic than I look.
Like, BS. Bantha poodoo. No one can jump that high.
I feel like Rafa does say something like, wait a second. Like, she wants to...
She says that's not normal.
Yeah. I think she's starting to catch on, but there's too much other stuff going on for her to pry.
I get it. But, like, I've been waiting for this reveal from Ahsoka. I want that conflict to happen. So now it has to next week.
Yeah.
Also, this was a big surprise. So, like, Ahsoka using the Force constantly draws some eyes, some Mandalorian eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a big surprise. And I think probably something they added. I think they probably added this to these episodes because this was never meant to be, like, one of the final episodes of the series. But they need to tie it into what's coming. So I think they added Bo-Katan, and they definitely added Ursa Wren.
Mm-hmm. Sabine's mom.
Yeah. So that I think was a really nice touch. It definitely made me excited for what's to come, and even more excited for next week to see, like, what else is Bo-Katan gonna do.
Yeah, they see her and they recognize her.
Bo-Katan recognizes Ahsoka, yes.
Yeah.
From the one time they met on Karlak.
Yeah, and she says something like, we'll keep an eye on her.
And she's like, well, we have a common enemy.
Yeah.
Although Ahsoka, I don't think, has met Maul yet, but sure.
She's going to.
Yeah.
We know that from the trailers.
I guess she just assumes all Jedi would be against Maul.
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of really highlighted just that this whole time, even through the Bad Batch arc, I've just been ready for the Siege of Mandalore.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is going to be the big thing everyone's talking about when this season is over. Because, like, I think some people weren't thrilled with the Bad Batch, and some people, like you, aren't thrilled with this arc. And I like, when it's all over, everyone's just going to be like, Season 7 was awesome because a third of it was the Siege of Mandalore.
Yeah. I just want to point out, like, Hello Greedo did a video recently about people saying that this season doesn't feel like the Clone Wars that they know and love, and it definitely does for me. Like, this arc feels like any other arc that I'm just, like, not super impressed with in any other season. Like, I'm not super disappointed.
It feels like an average Clone Wars arc to me. Yeah, not my favorite, not my least favorite.
Right. Yeah.
And I totally agree. We're like Hello Greedo, where I think Clone Wars was coming out right as I was leaving high school, entering college. I didn't watch it when it was first on TV. So
we
like,
didn't grow up watching it.
Right. We watched it after the fact as adults, and it was more recently. So this feels like the same Clone Wars to me.
Yeah. This episode ending where it started was like,
that just frustrated you.
Yeah, I'm over it.
It did feel like physically, like as far as the larger story goes, it felt like it didn't advance things too much. We had Bo-Katan, and that's kind of the only tie to the bigger universe, but it was more about the sisters and Ahsoka, and especially Rafa.
Yeah. I do like, so we got a little Easter egg at the very beginning with the guy from the cantina.
Oh yeah, the long snoot. No, that's Scarandan. I can never remember like their fake names.
He's got like gray skin.
Snaggletooth.
And he's a blue shirt. I thought that was cool. The two guys in the prison cell.
Oh yeah, they were fun.
That Ahsoka lets out. They just start helping, which is nice. They like start fighting the Pikes, and then we see them later like sneaking off. So they got out.
Yeah, and like they point out like, oh, those are the girls that helped us escape, and they run away. I was glad to see that they concluded their tiny little story.
Right.
And hopefully they're safe.
Yeah.
The Pikes are probably busy looking for Ahsoka and company, and not them.
Yeah.
Although we don't know what they did. They could have dumped way more spice. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else to say about this episode?
I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, they've got to figure out about Ahsoka being a Jedi in the next one.
Yeah.
And have that conversation.
I kind of wish they had done it this time. So then we could have spent an entire episode kind of dealing with that fallout. Instead, it'll probably happen like at the beginning or halfway through next week's episode, and then there'll be a little fallout, but it'll all be solved by the end. So
yeah,
I would have liked to spend a little more time with that conflict.
Yeah, I mean, I could see her like using the Force very obviously to like save one of their lives, and then that being kind of the transition of them being okay with her being a Jedi.
Yeah, I think that's probably what's going to happen. But I still think there should be a little bit of like, oh, we don't know how we feel about you right now.
Yeah.
Like she'll use it in a minor way at the start and they'll be angry, but then she will use it in a big way to save them at the end and they'll be happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll have to wait and see in the final episode of this arc next week. And then we'll get into the Siege of Mandalore, finally.
Yeah. I don't mean to be super negative, but
I don't think we're being super negative.
Yeah, I'm just being honest. I'm over it.
Over the Pikes. I did like seeing Obadiah, like more than just the little bit we've seen in the past. It was a cool city.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know what you thought of Dangerous Debt in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
And consider checking out our Patreon page where we're doing audio commentaries for all of these new Clone Wars episodes. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.